Hello and welcome back to another episode of Reviews. We've had a small breakaway just by been getting a few things set up and getting the channel arranged in a bit of a nicer manner that works better, as well as also working on films as my day-to-day job. So we're going to be going through things slightly differently now. I've had the good fortune of being able to speak with the rookies, and from now on I'm going to start doing these videos through their portfolio system. It's got a really nice layout. I've got a small video I'm going to show you after this that it's one they created themselves, so there's really no better version to show you what you can do with the site than that one. But we picked two artists from there today. We're starting with Ludvig Ribbnäs, and apologies if the name's not quite correct there. And for our second artist, we will be going with Sean Gardner today. As I was going through and trying to pick these ones, I purposely chose these two's work because I think they're at a level that's already good enough to be able to start looking at getting into studios. They might already well be in there, I'm not sure, but this is kind of a level that I think all students and juniors should be trying to get to. So we're going to go through today. You can see what I mean. I do have other videos where I go into much more depth normally. I'll look at students or juniors who've got a lot more work that they need help with. So I do have a backlog of ones you can look at, and hopefully in the future I'll have ones like this one here as well. But yeah, for now I'm going to play this small video just to give you an introduction into how this portfolio system on the rookies works. So if you've not already signed up to them, you can go ahead and have a look, and this should help convince you. And then after that we're going to head straight into looking at some artists. So having a look through this here, you can see that you're able to easily add multiple images at one time, which gives you the ability to fill in any portfolio piece without having to individually go through them. As well as that, you have this lovely feature where you can add multiple images as a layering system. So you could have, say, your color and your wireframe or clay, which can then easily be slid between. This is very handy for reviewing your work, and will be very useful at the point when a potential job application gets put through. And following on from that, you also have the ability to upload more of a custom thumbnail, so that you can highlight exactly what it is about the piece of work that you want looked at, the things that you feel is strongest and best that you want to be eye-catching. Because that's really important when you post something, that the person is able to see exactly straight away what should be your most powerful and important piece of work. So starting here with Ludvig's work, this is a really nice piece. I like the way it's laid out. Nice textures. It looks like a pretty clean model. I know this is more game res, so there is slight faceting around the edges. Maybe good to put a kind of a normal map in place. I don't know how well that would affect it, but overall looks really nice. I like this presentation of the smoke. It's a nice wee addition afterwards. Certainly adds that extra detail. My only thing would be perhaps it's emanating from these kind of orbs here. Yeah, I don't see any light or anything that suggests like any fire or anything smouldering that would sell to me the reason why there's smoke coming out of here. And it's just a general overall thing. A lot of the textures, they don't have a lot of breakup. So for instance, we look down here at the clothes. There's this nice kind of a bumper normal. I'm not sure how that's been rendered out there. But you get into this mud here, and there should be a specular sheen. Even if it's quite matte, there should be some kind of specular going on in the fabric here, which would then be interrupted by the mud, which would have its own even rougher or perhaps even shinier if it was wet mud, which should go in there and really affect that. And it's quite easy to do. You've already got these textures created, so you could just simply export them, turn them into black and white, and use them as some kind of driver. You've got for your handle here, again, it's very uniform. I would maybe be suggesting that have some dirt going on in here where it's gathered in the edges, maybe some wear here. You've got this chain hanging over it, so there'd be some scuff marks that it's been digging in. Same with the rock, it's very uniform. If it's been hitting things, there should be maybe chipped, more rough. There should be some variation in there to sell to me that this is used. There's some slight hints of it in the armor here. You can see in the edging where it's been rubbing from them kind of articulating against each other. So it looks really nice, but things like this would just take it to an extra level. Let's keep going through here. Some nice close-ups. Skin texture looks quite nice, but again there's just a slight flatness to it, and it would really benefit from having this beard. It's a very sharp line. Just to have it slightly feathered, so it had a more natural look, that would help sell that quite a lot more. Really like this cloak, it's nicely done. The weapons look good. There's from a modelling standpoint, without seeing the wireframe, everything about it looks really nice. Same notes again there. It's nice. There's some really nice breakup in here. You can see in the edge as it rolls over, you're getting these chips and bumps and scratches. That's really nice. Be good to just kind of extend that onto the rest of the model. There's really, in this edge here, you can really get some dirt and grime into all these bits here. If he's got all these dirt in his clothes, he's obviously going to have dirt everywhere, so just get them into the nooks there and it really helps sell it. Now this, if you were going to be applying for a modeler, this would be a really good thing to have in here, this nice clay render. It lets us see your model without the distractions of all the texturing, so that's really good. I think there's a lot of sculptural work that's gone into this to get all these designs and everything in the clothing here. We'll see that in a minute on the model. These all look nice. There we go. Yeah, there's a lot of sculptural work going on in here. Everything looks fairly clean. My only concern is we've got these lines that are coming down into triangles. As best as possible, I always avoid triangles. I know this is more of a game res mesh, so it's slightly different rules, but if you're going to go to the effort, sorry, skip back to that. If you're going to go to the effort of making all this stuff, it's really a shame if you were going to be doing it as a modelling job just to have this gone for such a small thing. I know that you'd make your high res one then baked into your low, so why not include that high res work where you've really gone in and spent the time making a really nice model before baking it down. That would be really impressive to see. Move on to the second piece here, another game res. Immediately what stands out to me is it's quite a flat model. I don't know if this is due to some kind of poly limitation, but if you've got this rough hint of kind of musculature where there's these joints and articulating areas, but it's just a single shape. There's no kind of bulge where this muscle would come in. Could really benefit from just a little bit of extra time. It might add some extra geometry, but it'd be worth it just to break the silhouette, because the normal maps and bump will help you get all this detail, but this silhouette is really not selling it for me. The face looks quite nice, but I can't see from the side if that's just the normals. Yeah, again, it's just this flat silhouette, it's just a curve. You should come down, you've got your lips, your kind of the muzzle section. Although I am really liking all the modelling, or the general look over here, because I need to wait to see the wireframe to understand the modelling side of it, but this looks really nice. I can see it looks like, however, it's been modelled with a different count from the actual horse itself. It looks like a slight faceting doesn't match with the body of the horse. It might cause a problem for rigging. Probably something that could be fixed easily, but it might be good to go in and the model actually just match up to the horse itself. Otherwise it looks really nice. Let's have a look through here. His hair looks good. I imagine this is hair cards, I'd guess. I would be very surprised with a model at this resolution if so much effort had gone into actually putting in a groom. So I'm guessing these are hair cards. The face does look good, but again it's just this silhouette. I can see the details were in there in this normal, but just one edge, just take this one edge and pull it out just a little bit just to break the silhouette. It would really help sell it. So onto this next piece here, we can see this is quite a nice looking vest. I like the presentation. The table for me is a little bit dull, so I would probably, if this is your key point, have this in focus. As you got the background out of focus, but have a really tight depth of field in this, so you'd have from here would be out of focus, kind of blending in. That would be nice. You would be able to see it in the bullets. It would just give that nice focused effect. There's a lot of empty space here. It's fine, all this negative space is fine when it's out of focus, but when it's in focus like this, it's detracting from the model that you're selling. The immediate thing I'm noticing is this stitching and this pattern in here. It looks like it's all going at different angles. As far as I'm aware of these, it's one strip of fabric which is just sewn at joints, which just bulges out, but this one's going down, this one's going up. They're all at different angles. It looks odd. See, across here it's fine, same direction, but there's just this kind of undulation in here that stands out. Everything else looks pretty nice. I mean, again, it might be restrictions on the project, I'm not sure, but the stitching is quite low resolution. I like the webbing, but it seems odd to me that there's this resolution in here for all the webbing which you won't see in a character versus the bit that will be visible all the stitches has such a low resolution, but it's hard to make a comment on that without knowing what the restrictions of the actual project were. Now it's a nice model. You can see there's been some nice sculptural detail in there. I like the zips are a bit of a pain to make, so it's nice to see that cleanly in there. There's not really much else to say on that. You can see there's slight issues with this gap up here. If this was velcroed on, it would be tight flat here and it's kind of curled along the lip, and so that could certainly go with some work there. But it's really nice to see this on the side. This looks like a really nice bit of modelling going on here. Hopefully we've got a wireframe. And again, these are really nice, but it's just a shame, and I can see that high-res modelling has been done, but it's not being included here. So I can see that obviously the guy knows how to bake stuff down, has an understanding of your normal maps and texturing, but it would be really nice to see wireframes of these high-res models. It'd be good to understand the actual skill level and process that's gone into it. Okay, so it's the end of it there. So in terms of this portfolio, I think the layout's pretty good. I personally would probably redo one of these renders, as I said, with the focus. I like having this guy at the start as a kind of a key piece. It's really nice. A nice thing about this portfolio versus ones that I've reviewed before is it's only 3 or 4 pieces long. It's concise, it's simple, there's no waste material in there, there's nice renders. Pretty much everything I need to know is in there. I've got the nice renders. There's a slight editor. I just noticed in here it's a bit of distortion, but that's just a rig issue. Yeah, I can see everything I need to see. I've got my close-ups, I've got my clay materials and a wireframe, so I know everything about roughly how this artist works. It would be good to have that high res in there just to really polish it off, but I like the order. The guy first, the horse, and then this bag. It's a nice way to go about it. I know it seems I'm probably being quite short with this one, but there's really not too much to look into. It's really nicely done. My only general comments would be coming more from my background, which is VFX, where we don't have restrictions of games like poly counts and resolution. I would just put in a lot more resolution and increase your textures. Maybe you can do some more efficient packing, split it into different UDIMs, but it could benefit with just having a general res up. And I would love, and I'll be keeping eyes on all these portfolios, so I'd love to see additions in the future where they've gone back in and added the wireframe of these high res ones that they've made, because that'd be something I'd really be interested to see. So let's move on to the next artist now. So now on to our second artist here. Now we have Sean's work. So immediately this is a sort of an opening piece. This looks fantastic. It looks like a nice clean model. I like the fur. There's a nice general composition to the piece. I quite like you got this bright exposure in the face, but it's not blown out by the background. The darker the cockpit, it gives us a nice focal point. The only thing that slightly looks odd to me is it looks, I don't know if it's just the texturing, but it almost looks noisy. So we'll find out as we go through how that actually looks. So modelling wise here, I would have a few notes. So let me just bring up a tool here just so we can have a look into those. So what I'd immediately look at, now this mask, I quite like the look of it. I'm glad to see this split in the middle. It's very important. We've got general nice curvature, all the face looks good, there's a nice uniformity in this pipe. This would worry me, all this kind of general triangulation. I'm guessing this has been done in something like Marvelous Designer perhaps, and then just exported. It can very easily be fixed up. You've got your UVs there, so export it both flat and in place. Build your topology on the flat version of the mesh, and then you can just blend shape it back onto the simulated one, so you get your nice quads and you still maintain all the detailing. For these, there should be equal topology coming all the way down. I know it's trying to save the curvature here, but for texturing, you can get around it if you're working in your own projects, but if you're working in a studio, this would be slightly frowned upon. It should be nice and even, and perhaps if this plane is going to go through destruction or something like that, you're going to need all that geometry in there, and it's going to be much harder to go back later on and add it rather than just adding it at the start. There's some oddness going on up here, but I think that might just be to do with the way this has been saved out. I can't see enough detail to actually comment on that. Everything in here looks fairly nice. The bolts look like they're overly dense, but the wireframe's been rendered out too thick to be able to tell correctly. That's also something that needs to come into consideration. If I'm going to be reading this, if I can't read the detailing, it's a bit pointless putting in the wireframe at all. In here there would definitely need to be some strips. You can see you've got this point here, which is 5-star point, and how much that's stretching up in that direction. When this is smooth, it's really pulling it up. So when I apply textures on here, it's going to stretch them all up in this direction. Just adding in a loop in here, maybe one in here. This will like restrain it to this section, and it'll stop it from stretching across. Probably add one in there as well. But overall, this is looking pretty nice so far. Yeah, let's move on to the next one here. There's nothing much more to say in there, which is always good. It's always nice when you're reviewing something. If there's less to say, it's because it's good work. It's nothing to do with there not being so much to see. It's just simply, if it's good, you don't need to worry. So let's go on to the next one. Always nice to see a clay render here. Everything looks fairly clean. Yeah, that all looks quite nice. I'm not seeing any particular standout sections that would make me worry. Always, when you're looking at something like this, I look for kind of curved surfaces and edging just to see if there's any pinching or high spots. There is a slight bit of faceting on the helmet here, which could do with just maybe a bit more subdivision or some extra detailing. These bolts, I can see that they are sticking down into the surface just fine, but if you're going to have that, you would need to have this metal plate react to it. Rather than just having them embedded into it, you'd need to have maybe a slight bulge to indicate that that they've been over fastened, or maybe over time though the metal's kind of warped and shifted. So you would need to have in there that detailing, just a slight rim to indicate that damage. But I mean, that's quite a small thing in the overall. This is why I've not noticed it till now, because this is the focal point. And that's fine. This is true of what we do in VFX as well. We put in the most effort to the area with the most focal point. I quite like the wee smiley face hiding up there. It's quite a fun wee addition, quite subtle. Yep, everything looks nice. It's nice to see the wee comp build up. Nice to see the layering together, it's good. Now onto a car here. Now, I normally suggest to students that I meet to avoid putting cars into a reel. It's nothing to do with me not liking cars or anything, it's just it's a very common thing to do. It can be quite oversaturated, so it's generally a suggestion of mine to stand out not to. But I like the way this has been done, the addition of the character, the nice setup. It's yeah, there's nothing wrong with having it in there, and it shows. It's really impressive as well having the door open, because then I'm able to see the time's been spent to build all the interior, which is far harder than building the outside of a car. Let's have a quick look. Everything looks fine. It's a bit hard to tell with this bright exposure. It could be worth just bringing it down slightly on this side. Open engine bay is really nice. Nice to see the interior there. It's good. Something I quite like as well when I'm looking at these, if I see kind of logos or decals and things, I know it's been UV'd rather than it just being a shader put on, so it's good to see that extra bit of effort's been put into there. I'd say these pistons, maybe they look a bit beefy, but without the reference I wouldn't be able to comment. And there's definitely some oddness going on in this handle. It looks like it's just perhaps a bit of faceting, perhaps from where this is being cut into the main shape. And I'm not sure of the car, but this way it comes in and then back out looks odd. I'd imagine that would be more of a smooth flow, but perhaps it's an artistic choice, perhaps it's in the actual car, I'm not sure. Everything in there looks pretty nice, like this nice subtle scratching in there. It's a nice little addition to show it being worn. The only problem with putting it in this is it's nowhere else in the car really, so it stands out slightly. Maybe worth just adding in a dirt pass in here. There's some dirt, and I think it's more dust in the tyres, so it could be nice to add that into the rest of it. There is I'd probably reduce the kind of the flaking in the paint here. It just, the scale's a bit big, but again that's a personal choice. Just with that, and I think it's a reflection of the floor and all these pipes here, and even here everything looks a bit noisy. There's like quite a grain to it. Even in the background here there's a grain, so it might just be a render issue, but it just kind of detracts from it, and there's a bit of aliasing on the edges here, which could do with just being touched up slightly. This interior looks great. Let's just take a quick second to have a look at that. Everything looks fairly nicely done in there. Nothing in particular standing out to me at the moment. Let's flick through and see what else we've got. Is that that's all the pieces? Okay. So when I look at these portfolios, I'll generally have like a very quick look before, just to make sure there's enough in there to talk about. But I don't actually go through and break them down. I like to do that live, so it can be kind of an accurate thought process of how I go through this if we were to receive this as an applicant for a job, for instance. So if I had some time to go back and look properly, perhaps something else would stand out. The only things I'm noticing very slightly is there's a pinching or a bunching up in this edge here. That can just be from adding in loops perhaps to get this nice edge coming down here. There's a variance in the thickness between here and here. It's this thickness in here, but it kind of bows in, and I don't understand why it would do that. And there's something peculiar going on here, but without a proper angle it's very difficult to tell. I'd imagine it's just the addition of some loops. It's introduced a bit of undesirable subdivision in there, but everything else looks pretty nice. Split between which render I prefer. I think if this render just had the exposure of this side brought down, that would be a really nice one, and then I would probably go for this one afterwards as the addition, because this has enough visual interest with the engine, the decals and everything, that I would be happy to see this as an opening piece. But for this is obviously more impressive because it's dealing with many things. You've got hard surface, soft surface, there's groom, there's texturing, there's the comp. It's a really nice overall showreel. The only thing that I think would really add to this is just taking some time to go in, fix the topology, and just add that extra layer of care. Just go in and do the edging, fix these up. But it's actually been quite a pleasure to look through these, because there's very little to comment on, which from my point of view is nice, because I'm looking at good work, and from the point of view of being recruited, if there's not many things that stand out, that's how you're going to get a job. So these are two great showreels. So I'd say for anybody who's watching, perhaps new or has watched any of my older videos, this is a really good point to get to. This is how you should be aiming. To this kind of level, I would say would be your baseline if you're looking for more of a studio job. So yeah, it's been great to look at. So thanks again for watching today. I really enjoyed looking through these. This is my first time doing reviews based on work on the Rookies. It's a very impressive looking through the level on here, and it's obviously a really nice site to use. So if you're watching this randomly, I'd suggest going there to have a look and even to sign up. As always, the way I'll be doing this is if you can get in touch with me either through the comments of this or on LinkedIn if you'd like to have your work looked at and reviewed. What I'll do is, if you look through my older videos, if you have any particular modelling issues inside, or if I start to see repetitive issues in your showreel, I will also do more live versions of. I'll open up, I personally use Modo for my modelling. I'll open it up and go through, show you some ways to get around those issues. So yeah, please get in touch if you have any interest, and obviously my YouTube, I need to do the plug and ask you to subscribe, because that would be really useful to me, and as well for future videos you'll get the notifications through. So thanks again for watching.